Hey, this is Johnny D, the Motivational Cowboy, with episode number 2 of Life at 300 miles per hour with my good friend Jimmo. And Jimmo, it's the first time that I have ever had to break it up into 2 episodes, but your story is just so inspiring. And I can't thank you enough that you're man enough to tell your story, and I know it can't be easy. But the coolest thing is that you learned from certain things that you did or didn't do in your life. Unfortunately, it took the passing of your wife, and that's where we left off is Tammy had a few months to live. She wanted to drive her car. So why we had a quick little break here, did she have a fancy car? Is that why she wanted to, like did she have a convertible or something super sweet?
No, she really didn't. She had a Honda CR-V that I got for her from my good friend Rick Fisher's dealership, Fisher Honda, Ypsilanti, Michigan.
There you go.
But we got her this car, and basically what we did after she had the cancer, and we wanted to get her something that it was easy for her to get in and out of, and that it didn't take a lot of effort for her to drive around. But we got her that, and I'm like, okay, it was a cool car for her. I mean, I would have picked something else, but that's what she wanted.
So you left off saying that she wanted to go for a ride that day. She woke up and wanted to go for a ride, and then she was upset that you wouldn't let her drive. Did you put her in the car, and did you guys go for a drive that day?
No, because she didn't want to do that. She didn't want to be a passenger.
So she wanted to drive herself.
She wanted to drive herself, and she did not want me in the car with her. And I said, I can't let you do that. I couldn't. And she was mad. I mean, she was real mad at me that I wouldn't, allow her to do that. But I couldn't in my right mind allow her to do that.
Did you ever let her drive again?
No, unfortunately, she never drove again.
The reason why I ask is you're the kind of guy that has connections. And while you were telling that story, I thought to myself, no, he's going to say that he went and got a runway, that they weren't landing planes anymore there, and let her drive just so she could feel that freedom again. And so did you, when you knew that she only had 6 months to a year, you knew that she wanted to make it to your daughter's graduation, which she did. A lot of people go on like family trips and stuff. Did you guys do any of that? Any of that kind of stuff?
Well, I remember we went to her oncologist, and things were getting pretty bad at that point. And they kept doing these chemo treatments and radiation treatments. By now she had cancer in spots that were in her brain, and a lot of other spots. And it was like, you're trying to plug all these holes, and it's just not working. Mm-hmm. They would do radiation here, radiation there. For every spot they got rid of, 2 more showed up.
Yeah.
And, so went in, met with her oncologist, and he, at that point, suggested putting her on hospice. And I remember my daughter and I and Tammy were in there, and it was almost like for Tammy, she felt like that everybody had given up on her at that point. And I felt that a little bit too, like, for her that they gave up on her. It's like, all right, well, we can't do anything else. This is the end of the road for you.
Right.
And so we left there, and I remember we got in the car. Tammy says, I want to go to Taco Bell drive-through, and I want to get a taco, and I want to get some the dessert things that they had. I can't remember the heck what they call them, the chalupas or whatever they were.
The cinnamon or whatever.
The cinnamon things or whatever. And she goes, and I don't want to hear a word about it. Because at that time, Ashley and I were constantly on Tammy about her diet, eating good, and that, maybe that can help her and all that. And we would get in her case about whatever she ate, or, she loved Mountain Dew. And we would always get in her case about drinking Mountain Dew. So we went to the Taco Bell drive-through. She got her taco with meat and cheese only on it, her cinnamon chalupa things or whatever they were, and a Baja Blast Mountain Dew. And she was happy. And, you know, that made her happy. So then we went back to the house, and Tammy and I had always procrastinated about going to Niagara Falls. You know, she would say, look, we need to go to Niagara Falls. And I'm like, okay, yeah, when are we going to do that? You know, and I certainly didn't want to go to Niagara Falls in the wintertime. You know, right. in the racing business, it seems like that's really your only time that you can schedule a vacation, is either during Thanksgiving or Christmas. Yep. And, you know, so I told her, I said, we're going to Niagara Falls. She goes, when? I go, tomorrow. And
really,
she's like, okay. So, you know, we hopped, you know, I went to a medical supply store, and I bought a wheelchair, a couple other things for her, because there was no way she was going to be able to walk around by herself. So, you know, I get all these things for her, and I said, I don't care if it takes us 3 days to drive there. This is what we're doing. So everybody says, well, you got to go to the Canadian side. Well, unfortunately, I didn't have a passport for Ashley at the time. So, you know, we went the American side. So we drove, you know, from our home in Ypsilanti. Then we drove, stopped in Cleveland, you know, one night. And, you know, I was prepared to, like, if I have to just drive like 100 miles each day and stop and get a room for her, that's what we're going to do.
Right.
But we made it to Cleveland. We went and had a nice dinner. She did really well. She struggled a little bit sleeping, but got up the next morning. She was ready to go. And we made the trip. We got to Niagara Falls, and you know, we had a room. You know, so then the next morning, got up. I, you know, had her in a wheelchair, and I felt, you know, I pushed her probably 10 miles in that wheelchair. You know, just everything. But we go and we see the falls. So, you know, it was Memorial Day weekend. I remember that, and it was so crowded.
I was going to say, it was probably
so
packed.
Crowded with people. And she goes, you know, I pushed her up, and, you know, she's, you know, finally sees all the, you know, the falls for the first time. And of course there's all these rude tourists cutting in front of her. And I'm, you know, and I was getting mad, because it's like these people couldn't see that this woman's in a wheelchair,
right,
you know, and was trying to see something.
Yeah.
And, you know, so it was a little aggravating in that respect, but we had a great time, you know, like looking at all the stuff. And
did she love it?
Well, I said, well, what do you think? She goes, well, this is really cool. And we stayed there, you know, into the night, and then we had dinner, and then we went back to the hotel room. And, so the next morning we woke up, and I thought we would go back. And I said, so what'd you think of Niagara Falls? You would go back and check some more stuff out? She's like, no, I really wasn't that impressed with it.
It's like one of the biggest wonders of the world, right?
I go, okay. I go, well, what do you want to do today?
Wait a second. And you guys had been procrastinating on probably 20 years of going there, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So
yeah. And I'm like, dang, man. That's after all this time. But, you know, but I was okay. You know,
yeah.
I said, well, what do you want to do instead? She goes, well, let's go find a mall, and let's go find Ashley a dress for graduation. And I go, okay. So we went to the mall instead. Spent our last day there, you know, at the mall.
So what'd you get at the mall? Did you get a dress?
Well,
because I know how you are. You probably wanted to spoil her, and Tammy was not from what I remember, Tammy was not a very materialistic person at all.
Not at all. She, but it was funny, you know, they went in some stores, Ashley and her were looking for dresses, and then, you know, I kind of like, it's hard shopping with your daughter and your wife at the same time when you're in all these women's, you know, whether it's women's clothing or purses or whatever it may be. And they were looking at everything. And it was pretty funny, you know, but, you know, finally Ashley found a dress. And I remember we're sitting out there, and, you know, Tammy goes to me, she goes, you know, she says, I think I'd like some ice cream. And I'm like, okay. Well, then Ashley's like, you don't need ice cream now, because Ashley's still on this thing that's not
Eat
what
right.
you should be eating on your, on a diet, and so Tammy and Ashley, they're bickering each other about this ice cream. And I said, Ashley, your mother wants ice cream. I said, let's go get her some ice cream. And so Ashley's like, fine, whatever. And I'm like, all right, well, so I push her up, and there's this Haagen-Dazs there, and I pushed Tammy up there, and I said, well, what kind do you want? And she's, well, I don't know. And she's looking over because she's in the wheelchair, and she's looking over, and there's a nice young girl behind is asking her like, oh, do you want to try anything? And so, Tammy tries like a little spoon of like cookies and cream, and then another, I don't remember what the one was, but she goes, finally settles on, I'll have a scoop of cookies and cream ice cream. And so this girl, gets this ice cream for Tammy, and I go to, to pay for it. And the girl says, oh, no, that's on me. I'm taking care. I'm like, no. So I gave the girl like a $10 tip.
Yeah.
I just thought it was really nice of her to do that. And I remember, sitting there and watching Tammy starting to eat this ice cream. And now this is a woman, she'd been through chemotherapy, radiation. She actually had a pain pump implanted in her that we had to put in her because, pills and they weren't doing the job anymore. So like whenever she started having these pain fits, we had a button, and she'd hit the button, and it would send pain medication right into her spine, which would help her out.
Right.
But it didn't last real long. It would help some, but it was, not the cure all by any means, but it was all we had at the time. And I remember sitting there watching her eat this ice cream, and the biggest smile came upon her face. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, you got to be kidding me. And I said, this ice cream, this little simple scoop of cookies and cream ice cream is more powerful than that pain pump and chemotherapy or radiation, because what it did, it put a smile on her face, and it brought her happiness, and she was pain free. And it was amazing.
I often say that we have those aha moments in our lives. For you, was that an aha moment that you saw that the simplest thing on this planet made somebody so happy?
Absolutely. That was probably the most like eye-opening thing I've ever seen in my life for me. That aha moment that was like something so simple as a scoop of ice cream was so powerful.
That kind of took over your way of thinking up until today. I mean, you still live, differently ever since that moment. And I don't want to speak for you, but because I remember that, you know what I mean? I mean, you were just all business. And then all of a sudden after Tammy, you changed. You changed as a person. Not that you were a bad person. You just changed. Like your mindset was like, man, is he trying to take over my job now? I mean, this guy is like very motivational. He's very inspiring. He's very, you know what I mean? Because sometimes it takes something like that in life, that we see something or we realize something. That's something that you saw and then realized that, wow, life is this simple.
Well, and at that time I saw the effect that it had on Tammy, but I still didn't understand how I could use that moving forward.
Right.
It actually took me another really few months before I kind of understood
but you still understood it.
Yeah.
So after the ice cream, how many more months did you have her?
Well, we didn't.
Did she actually see your daughter graduate?
Yes, that was the most awesome thing in the whole world. I'll never forget. Ashley was graduating on the Friday night of the weekend we were racing in Englishtown, New Jersey. And so, I remember, getting ready, and I'm like, I'm not going to Englishtown on Friday. So it's like it's going to be the first time that I'm not there with my race car, helping to tune the Mac Tools car. So my guys at that time, they did a great job. We communicated about, what to do. I had my phone with me, my tune-up program with me in the graduation ceremonies. And Tammy and I was sitting with her. They had a section for handicapped people, at the time, and she was in the wheelchair. So I had her there, and then I was next to her. And, the guys were sending me some information about, the air and everything. So I would suggest things. But basically, the boys, they ran the car without me, there. But I was able to follow along and, have a little bit of input, what was going on. But, I remember the cool part is that they made, before we went to graduation, they had made their first qualifying run, and before the graduation started, they made their second run. So it was like, all right, now I can just focus on watching my daughter graduate. And, with the last name Oberhofer, she wasn't obviously one of the first kids up there. She was more towards the middle, towards the back. And I'll never forget when they called my daughter's name and she walked up on that stage, and Tammy was so excited and she cheered so loudly, it brought a tear to my eye that she was able to see that.
Yeah.
And I knew as soon as that moment was over, I knew that she was done. And I knew that she had accomplished her goal of seeing Ashley graduate. And I felt like that she's probably not going to be here very much longer. And so the next day, Tammy's mom and dad, they were up and they stayed over at the house. And I had asked Ashley what she wanted to do for like a graduation party. And she says, well, I'd really like to go to the Englishtown race with you. And we always, at the Englishtown race, we always had we called it Eddie's Lobster Fest in honor of Scott Kalitta. And she wanted to be part of that. And so that's what she wanted for her graduation party.
So she graduated on Friday. You were back at the racetrack on Saturday?
And she went with me. We flew in Saturday morning and flew into LaGuardia Airport. We drove down to the track and I spent that weekend with my daughter, and it was awesome. Yeah. It was absolutely awesome. And when I got back home, we had a weekend off before the Bristol race, and Tammy was like, she was on it. It was like all of a sudden, like she was like feeling really good and stuff. So she, Tammy loved going to the casinos down in Detroit. Well, she loved going to any casino anywhere. She'd been to them in Australia, Vegas, anywhere there's a casino, she's going, right? So she had told me that she wanted to go down to Greektown Casino. So, I drove her down there. Ashley and I drove her down there, and I had asked if I could, go in there with her. And she says, no, because you're just going to rush me. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, but I need to push her in the wheelchair. Well, she did not want a wheelchair. She walked in there, and I remember going to the parking garage, and they had the little skywalk deal to connect it to the Greektown Casino. And I dropped her off right where the skywalk was. And she walked into the casino. And I said, when you get in there, I said, you call me. So, she called me, and she was sitting down in a machine, and she was loving life. So then Ashley and we went to Fishbones, in Detroit, and we had dinner. And I told Tammy, I said, just call me whenever you're ready. And so I'd get a text from her here and there, and then I'd, call her and stuff. And then she goes, okay, I'm ready. And I go, all right, well, we're in the same spot we were. And she's like, okay. And so next thing you know, she goes, I'm here. And I'm like, where? Like, I don't see you anywhere.
Right.
So I'm like, well, where are you at? She goes, the place you dropped me off at. And I go, okay. So I tell Ashley, I said, Ashley, I think your mother's lost. I said, I'm going to go in and find her. And so I'm going through this casino and I can't find her. And then and then the phone service isn't so great in the casino. So I'm getting nervous. I'm like, man, where's she at? And at the same time, my daughter's in the car by herself, waiting on me. So finally I said, I'm going to go to this valet area. So I go out to this valet area and there she is. She's sitting there and she's just carrying on this conversation with the valet people, just having a grand old time. And she goes, "Oh, there you are. I wonder where you've been." And I said, I couldn't remember where it was that we parked. I said, I said, I parked somewhere else. I said, "I'll come back and get you." She goes, "Oh, no, we'll walk." And I go, "You sure?" I said, "I'll come back and get you." No, we'll walk. So anyway, I think it was just because she wanted to walk through the casino again and see if there was a machine that was calling her name. But we walked back through the casino and then went back to the car. And she's like, "Yeah, this isn't where you dropped me off the first time. It was the other place." And I'm like, "Oh, you're right."
So did she win?
I don't know. She, anytime Tammy went to the casino, she always told me that she won, and she might win $50 or $100, but you really didn't know how much she spent to get that $50 or $100. But it was really cool. And then that Sunday, this was on a Thursday night, and then on Sunday she asked me if she can go to the casino again. And I said, "Sure." She goes, "Well, I don't want you to go with me." I go, "Well, how are you going to get there?" And she says, "Well, I'm going to go with Kim, my brother Jono's wife." And so Kim and her, Tammy got all dolled up and they went down to the casino. They had dinner and they just had this great old time. And it was almost like, man, I'm jealous that I didn't get to go down there with her, but they had this great old time. And this was literally, about a week or so before she passed.
Wow.
She had this burst of energy and it was like awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. That is so awesome. So your wife passes away. You have this new energy about yourself. And maybe energy is the wrong word, Jim, but you had this new outlook on life. Is that when you got excited and you start writing a book, or was that a little bit later? Because that's something that I do want to talk about, because you bring up a lot of personal stuff in the book.
It took a little bit of time for me. I think, for me, when Tammy finally passed, for me, I couldn't believe it, and I didn't want to believe it. And I remember when it happened, that there was like this, empty feeling in my stomach that, she was gone and I was never going to be able to, spend any time with her again. And, then there was the reality of the fact that, I had an 18-year-old daughter that just lost her mother, and I'm not laughing.
I'm laughing because it's like 18 years old.
And I'm like, how am I gonna do this? How is she gonna be? And what do I do? From here on out, with my daughter. I mean, I spend most of my time on the road, and my daughter, she's just graduated from high school, and it's like, what do I do here?
Did you jump right back into your job because that was your scapegoat? For a lot of us, man, we jump right into work because that's easy.
Well, yeah. I mean, when my wife passed away, I went to the very next race was in Epping, New Hampshire, and it was the first race that they had in Epping, New Hampshire, as an NHRA national event track. And this was back in 2013. And, I flew in with Connie and Doug and Cowboy Bob. He came out. He was so awesome. He came out and stayed with me and helped me with all the funeral arrangements and everything, which is a whole nother story in itself. But, we went to the Epping race, and for me, it was very therapeutic for me because my my racing family was so important in my life, and so many people that I knew, you know, in life were from racing, and I have so many close friends and, you know, people in the sport of racing that really helped me through it. And it really helped me when, you know, I looked at the Don Schumacher racing cars, and they had a Tammy O sticker on the car, John Force, you know, cars, and, you know, and having these guys come up to me and, you know, talk to me and tell me how sorry they were and ask me how my daughter was doing and everything. And it was very, you know, very therapeutic for me. You know, I was very fortunate to have that racing family there for me, you know, at that time. It was, I probably couldn't have gotten through it the way I did without them.
Isn't it amazing that when you lose somebody, you realize how important they were, not to just you, but to so many other people as well?
Yeah. It's, you know, and Tammy, you know, she knew so many people, you know, because when she used to work for NHRA, and she did like a lot of the media stuff with them, and then working for the Kalitta team, doing the PR stuff for them. And, you know, she was, you know, very well liked, you know, in the world of drag racing.
So did you become, after all this, is that when you took up dancing and became a professional ballroom dancer?
Well, I wish I could say I was a professional ballroom dancer, Johnny D, but I was definitely far from that. I was, you know, when they have those like pro-am things, I was the am, like the amateur. But actually, the ballroom dancing came into play in early 2010, and when I took my first lesson, my wife and I took our first lesson. But
so it was your wife that got you involved. I was going to ask you.
Oh yeah, it was all her, because we used to go this Mexican restaurant there close to where we lived, and we would go to this restaurant. And next thing you know, she started noticing they were building a building something in this strip mall next to the Mexican restaurant. So she starts looking, and finally it shows that it's going to be a ballroom dance studio that was getting built. So I'm like, oh, okay. So she's like, oh, that's going to be so cool, ballroom dancing, whatever. We need to go try this. I'm like, yeah, right. I don't think so. I'm not doing that. So every time we go to the Mexican restaurant, she would bring it up. Well, then the next thing you know, the place opens up, and, you know, she would look in there, and she just thought it was so cool. And so I remember Tammy and her friend Melody, they went to Las Vegas, and they had a girls' weekend, because Melody was one of Tammy's close friends. She also had cancer. She was had breast cancer, and so they both went to Vegas, and they had this grand old time. So while they're there, I asked Ashley. I said, "Hey, do you think I should go buy Mom, buy us ballroom dancing lessons as like an anniversary present?" And she says, "Oh, I think she would love that." So I go into this place, and I, ask for like a beginner's package. So I buy this beginner's package and give it to Tammy for our wedding anniversary, which was December 20th. And she couldn't believe that I bought this. So the next thing is they're calling me up. The dance studio is wanting to know when I want to schedule, my first lesson. So I said, I'll get with you, let you know. So next thing finally we schedule a lesson, and her and I are driving up there. Well, Tammy starts getting nervous. I hope they don't have us dancing out in front of people and whatever. I said, I'm sure they got a back room where we go to or whatever. So, which they did. They had these curtains. They closed everything off. So our instructor came in there, and we started.
So it was like a private lesson?
Yeah, it was a private lesson. So we had 3 private lessons. So we do this first lesson, and the instructor, Trish, she's going to teach us foxtrot. I'm like, what the hell's foxtrot, right? So next thing you know, I'm like trying to do these, slow, quick, slow, all these things. And then the next thing you know, the lesson's over, and I'm like, I got, okay. So then we do another lesson. Well, by the time our 3 private lessons were done, I found myself, we both did, that we wanted to do more.
Yeah.
Like we felt like we just scratched the surface and we wanted to do more. So
were you amazed that you could actually move like that?
Well,
because you're a big dude.
Oh yeah. It was at the time, I'm like, I definitely had 2 left feet when I started out, but so we bought 20 more lessons and we started, doing more. And then the next thing you know, they asked us if we wanted to do a showcase where we each did a routine. So then, Tammy and I would kind of split off to where she had more of an instructor working with her than I had mine working with me. And, coming up with these these showcases, so to speak. And I will tell you this, that, Tammy was way more at ease on the dance floor performing than I could ever be.
Yeah.
I stressed out too much because it was too competitive.
I was going to say, it's competitiveness.
Yeah. And that
she was having fun with it.
She was having fun with it. I took it the
Yeah.
other way, which was tough, but we both finished, and it was awesome. We had such a great time doing it.
Okay. I have to ask, because I know in the showcases, not only did you have to learn how to dance, but dude, you had to dress up. The only thing I've ever seen you in is jeans and a pullover shirt, or your black pants at the racetrack and a Mac Tools shirt.
Yeah.
So when you do these showcases, you have to dress up, right? You have to put a nice suit on or a tuxedo and wear these fancy shoes. I mean, right?
Oh yeah. Well, when we
how did that feel? That had to make you feel a little uncomfortable too.
Oh yeah, no doubt. The tuxedo wasn't so bad, because when you do like the American smooth dancing, so like waltz, foxtrot, tango, things like that, I wore a tux. So I bought a tux, a regular tux, and I'm like, I always dig dressing up in tuxes because I like to kind of look like James Bond is a cool thing, right? So that wasn't so bad. The problem was the rhythm dancing. So when you had, East Coast swing, rumba, cha-cha, things like that, mambo. Well, then you get into like the Latin pants and
those are like the real skin tight ones and everything.
Oh yeah, and I don't have that kind of figure at all to pull that off. But
you did lose a lot of weight when you started dancing.
Oh yeah,
you went from, I'm not going to say you were.
I went from being like an offensive lineman.
Okay, yeah. I'll let you say it any way you want.
Down to like a wide receiver, almost, But
so did dancing have a lot to do with your physical appearance and wanting to work out more and more and more?
Yeah, no, it certainly, and it was a fun way of losing weight because, I grew up like I would have loved to have played professional football.
Yeah.
I would have but that was never going to happen for me. But it was, you go to the gym and, it was kind of a drag, going to the gym and all that. It was kind of got old after a while, but then it was like, I did this dancing thing and the weight started coming off and I felt like more physically fit than I'd ever felt in my life. So I really dug it. It was cool.
What was, cause I saw a few videos of you doing it and I mean, I don't know if you know this, but they're on YouTube and stuff. So people can find you doing those. What was your favorite dancing to do? If you could pick just one.
I tell you what, I really enjoyed the American smooth dancing. So I really enjoyed like doing a waltz or a foxtrot. Tango was really cool. I really enjoyed doing the tango and stuff. And a Viennese waltz was really cool. That is like,
those of you that can't see Jimmo right now, he is like getting all excited up on the microphone, grinning when he's talking about this. This is great.
Well, the Viennese waltz was, I tell you what, that was the coolest thing because it was such a fast-paced, smooth dance. And it's almost like, I remember the first time I did this, we're going straight and then I didn't know how to turn. So I was definitely a drag racer at that point. Like I needed to turn left and I didn't know how to turn left. And I just was going to go straight through the window of the dance studio.
Is this something that you think the men and women that are listening to this podcast right now that may be in a situation in their relationship that they need to do something to spark it again. Is going ballroom dancing a great way to get to learn who your partner is again, get to know who your partner is again, have some fun with your partner again?
I think so. I think it's definitely a fun thing to do. And the best advice I could say, if you do choose to do that with your wife or your significant other, that you keep it fun.
Right.
For me, and I'm just going to call myself a dumb at this point, was that I just found it as another way that I can be competitive. And when I found out that they had these pro-am dance competitions, I was all about winning. Man, I won a lot of top male student awards, and that I was very proud of. But same thing, it took a lot of time away from me being, that good husband, good dad, good family man, because I was like, it was just another way for me to compete. But if you can do it when I got back to what it was originally for, just to be fun, it's a great way of meeting different people.
You always talk about how competitive you are, and it seems like you just do whatever it is you're going to try to win. I even found a video today before you got here of you and your brother, and I want to make sure that I got this right, because you guys, there was an incredible video, and it was back in, I want to say 1997, 98, and it was a Castrol rib eating contest. You guys were eating ribs against each other on TV. Now, is that just because you were hungry that day and they didn't feed you enough, or will you guys find any possible way on earth to compete against one another?
Well, actually, my brother and I were on the same team, and actually,
you were?
Yeah,
okay.
and actually, how all this started, it was kind of funny. We were down in Dallas, Texas, at the West End Marketplace. We were displaying our car, one of the Kalitta cars, and Ed the Ace McCullough was our crew chief, and his late wife Linda was there with us, and this was an event that was sponsored by Castrol. So you had a Kalitta car there, and then there was a John Force show car there, and everything was Castrol. Castrol GTX everywhere, Castrol Super Clean, all this stuff. So we had heard that we're going to have a rib eating contest. So Linda McCullough tells my brother and I, you and your brother need to enter that. And I'm like, we don't want to do that. And she's like, oh no, you guys need to do that. So next thing you know, they entered us in this Castrol Edge rib eating contest.
Were there professional people there too, like during this deal?
Yeah, there were. There was the Castrol Super Clean rib eating team that was there, and I think there was a total of 8 teams, which included my brother and I. Now, John Force was teamed up with Nate Newton from the Cowboys,
right?
So John Force wasn't going to eat nothing, and neither was Nate Newton, because he had to do a weigh-in with. I think he was still with the Cowboys at the time, or he was trying out for the Eagles or something like that, but. He's like, I can't eat, because I got to make weigh-in or whatever. And he was a big dude. Bruce Litsky was a professional golfer. And then there were some other, local celebrities that were there. And then there was also this Castrol Super Clean rib eating team. So my brother and I were in Heat 1. And so my brother and I were next to Bruce Litsky, the golfer, and then there's a writer, I believe, from the Fort Worth Star Telegram there. And there's my brother, and then there's me, and then John Force and Nate Newton on the other side, and there was another team. So anyway, we start this deal, and they start, and it was before they started, the Castrol Super Clean rib eating team captain. He comes over to me, and he's like, okay, well, this is what you should do. And you just put the bones here and all. I'm like, all right, well, I'm eating ribs. Like, what's the big deal here, right? So next thing you know, they start, and I start mowing through these ribs like you wouldn't believe. And my brother's like, he's not going quite. I'm eating 2 ribs to his 1 at that time. And next thing you know, like Bruce Litsky, he just stops and looks like, he's like, holy crap, look at this guy eat these ribs. And then, Nate Newton, he's looking over like, damn, and I'm just going to town eating these ribs. Well, then like we won that heat. My brother and I, we won that heat. So we made it to the final round. And we're like, man, I don't know when this final round is, but it's like, I hope it's not within an hour or 2 hours. Luckily, this was like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And then the final was going to be at like 7 o'clock that night when they had all their main stuff going on down there. So anyway, we make it to the final, and they've got my brother and I, you know, I'm my brother's seated, then I'm next to him, and then right next to me is the 2 guys from the Castro Super Clean Rib Eating Team. So anyway, we start. Well, now my brother's stepped his game up. So we're just mowing through, and we're like throwing ribs down, and we are like, I mean, we are battling with these Castro professional guys over there. And Garen Suhu, my good friend who introduced me to Cowboy Bob, he was working with us at the time, and he's videoing all this, right? And like people are cheering because like they're like, man, we're gonna win this deal, right? So we are just going to town on these ribs. Well, I'm throwing bones down. Jono's throwing bones. Well, some of our bones like rolled over into the Castro guys, and Garen had it on film. They swiped some bones from us, you know. And when it was all said and done, we lost by 1 rib.
Wow.
So Garen, he's going to Bob Fry. He's like, hey, I've got it on
that was
video.
The announcer for,
yeah,
right?
he's going to NHRA announcer. He's telling Bob Fry, hey, I've got it on video. Those guys stole like 3 bones from Jimmo and Jono. And Bob Fry's like, you know, he's like, nope. This is a Castrol event. We can't do anything. But he's like, no, these guys got ripped off. But I mean, we held our own with those guys. Like, awesome. and I
so
think
how many ribs did you eat? Like, was it within minutes?
It was, yeah, I think it was 10 minutes. You had to eat all these ribs. And
do you remember how, back then?
I don't remember, but all I remember is I thought, man, I hope I don't choke to death right now. But my brother and I, I mean, we're not ready to go battle Joey Chestnut at the time, but like we did pretty good. I was pretty proud. I have a picture of my brother and I that I can't remember who took this picture, but we're eating and our cheeks are as fat as can be, just filled with rib meat and stuff. It was awesome. Great time.
Let's get back to your book. Something that, you know, I'm so proud of you, you know, Top Fuel for Life, man. And it's life lessons from a crew chief. Why did you write a book? Most people, you know, I have 2 of them, and it's like birthing a baby.
It is. Yeah, it is.
You know, what made you want to even be an author?
You know, I had some good friends of mine, Brian Marshall and Scott Garwood, and I had spent some time talking with them, and you know, and after Tammy passed away, we would talk about things, and I would bring up things of how, you know, how many things I learned through this experience with her, you know, both good and bad mistakes I made and everything. And they said, you know, you ever thought about writing a book, you know, and putting all this on paper? And I'm like, why would I write a book? And they're like, we think you have a great story to tell. Yeah. And I said, okay. So, you know, we joked about it a little bit, and then I kind of blew it off. And then a couple of weeks later, like, hey, you thought about it? You want to do this book? And finally I'm like, all right, we'll do this book. And, you know, so we went through all that, you know, getting some funding together to make it happen with a Kickstarter program. And finally that became a reality. And next thing you know, we're writing this book. And you know, I had a great ghostwriter in Michelle Kelly. She helped me out so much, you know, put my thoughts and words on the paper and put it in the correct order and stuff, and make sure all the editing was right and everything. So, you know, and I really wanted to make sure that I was as, you know, accurate and honest as possible, and truthful as possible about everything that I put in the book. And, you know,
was it emotional for you?
It was. Yeah. And it was also therapeutic for me at the time to be able to write that book. And I told myself when I was all done, and I said, I hope that this book can help one person. If it can help one person, then I'm going to be very happy about that. And, you know, I certainly didn't write the book to make money.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I have not, you know, made a dime. I've spent a lot of money, you know, with getting it all going. But, you know, I just wanted to be able to share the mistakes I made in my life, you know, whether it was while Tammy had cancer, before she had cancer. I just wanted to help. If there was a way that there was somebody else out there that was going through something very similar to I was going through, that possibly reading my book would help them. And that's
what was it like the first time someone came to you, either called you, wrote to you, or saw you at a book signing and says, you know what, thank you so much?
Believe it or not, it was the weekend we had the book launch in Dallas, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And a lady brought her friend out to the racetrack, and her friend had just lost her husband to cancer. And apparently, you know, they got hold of my book on Amazon.com like a few days before, and this lady read this book in a matter of like 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
And she came out to me at the racetrack in Dallas, and she specifically wanted to come out to the racetrack to meet me and talk to me and tell me how much my book made to her and how much it helped her.
Yeah.
And it was at that point that I went, wow, you know, and, you know, there's so many great things that I've been able to do in life, you know, whether it's being part of a championship winning drag racing team, or, you know, being a crew chief for Doug Kalitta and, you know, winning races and things like that. But to be able to help somebody that way is so much more gratifying than anything else. And I started seeing this a lot more, you know, people that, you know, read my book, they would send me emails or messages on Facebook or Instagram or whatever it may be about how they read my book and how much of a impact it made on their life. And people coming up to me at the racetrack, and I'd sit there and talk with them, and it was truly amazing.
There is no amount of drugs, alcohol, money, or anything else to make you feel that way. Am I right or wrong? Oh,
you're absolutely right. It's to make a positive impact on and a powerful impact on somebody's life that way. That is, you can't put a price on that whatsoever.
So, Jimmo, you know, I'm a professional motivational speaker for 20 years. I have a couple books, but the speaking business came first, then my books. You went the other route. You came out with a book, and then all of a sudden people said, hey, will you come speak for our company, for our organization? What was it like for you to, now you've already been a crew chief for a championship team. You've been like all these things and succeeded at every single one of them. What was it like 5 minutes before you took the stage of your first motivational talk?
Well, it was pretty, yeah, it was.
And I'm having fun with you now because I know if you give me one answer, I know that you're telling the truth. If you give me another answer, I know you're full of crap.
I was nervous.
Okay, I was going to say.
I was definitely nervous. You know,
So what was it like for you though when somebody came to you and said, "I read your book. I want you to. Will you give us a keynote talk? Will you do this for us?" I mean, you probably didn't even know that there was a business out there for that stuff, right?
No, I was blown away.
The only speaker you probably ever met was me.
Yeah.
And now you've met a few other ones, I'm sure. But now all of a sudden you're up there with a microphone speaking for an hour.
It was awesome. I remember Doug Herbert, you know, he has a great organization called Breaks, and it's be responsible and keep everyone safe. And Doug, unfortunately, he lost his two sons, James and John, to a car accident back in 2008. And he took that tragedy and did something positive with it, because unfortunately his boys were, you know, driving recklessly and they went head on into a car. And it was devastating for Doug, but Doug did something, and he did something positive about it. And he put this organization together that it's more than a driving school. And it's not just for the kids, it's for the parents, it's for everybody involved, to teach them the dangers of, driving recklessly, and to teach them about being responsible on the road. And it's such a great and wonderful organization. And I remember when he and now his wife Mimi, they asked me about speaking at their event, and so I did this, and it was awesome, and it was such a great event, and I enjoyed every minute of being able to do that, and it was such an impactful thing for me that I learned so much from. And then, after that, I remember Brett Shaw, he was the former president of Mac Tools, and he asked me to be a speaker at one of the Mac Tools Fair, their big show that they have every year. And I remember doing that, and you're sitting up there in front of, almost 1,000 Mac Tools distributors. And I'm like, man, I hope I don't screw this up. But it was really cool, because then you get to meet so many people that can relate to what you said.
Absolutely.
And that's what was so awesome about everything for me, because, I truly felt like I had the ability to help people. I had the ability to help people through, what could be a tough situation, a bad situation. And I can help people learn through the many mistakes I've made in my life.
What's some advice that you could give a young man or a woman that wants to get into the racing business? Because the racing business is the same across the board. It doesn't matter if it's NASCAR, if it's NHRA. It's still, you still have PR, you still have sponsorship, you still have a driver, you still have a crew. You know what I mean? You have all this. What advice, because I'm sure you get asked this all the time, what advice could you give somebody that wants to get into the racing business?
Well, the racing business is very, it's very time consuming, and it sucks you in, because it's, all racing is fun. I mean, for me, drag racing is the greatest thing on earth, but there's people that love NASCAR, IndyCar, Formula One, motorcycle. It doesn't matter what it is, if it's got 2 wheels, 4 wheels, people will race it, maybe even 1 wheel in some respects. But, I guess the thing for me is that don't ever forget about yourself, and there's nothing wrong with putting yourself first, to make sure that you're happy with what you're doing, because it's a tough life, and it's definitely a different lifestyle than, a normal 8 to 5 job. You travel a lot, and there's lots of ups and downs with racing. I mean, you certainly don't go out and win every single race. That's right. There's guys that have come close. I think Steve Torrance is doing that now over on Top Fuel side, NHRA. But it's like, you have to accept the lows with the highs, right? Because it's so easy to go from being a champ to a chump in no time, and it's you have to learn. And sometimes you get spoiled. When things are going really good, you just don't think they can ever go another way, but they can.
And when you think that you are done learning, you might as well pack your bags and go, because you're going to be whisked away. Yeah, because you're going to be constantly learning.
Yeah, there's every day is a learning experience, and for me, the day that I wake up and think I know everything about drag racing is a day that I really need to quit and just not even be involved in anymore.
What passions do you have outside of racing? Like, I mean, and don't tell me you go home and you tinker around with your other cars. No. I mean, what passions do you have outside of racing? When you've had a tough weekend, or you just want to get away, what do you do to get away from everything?
Well, probably the first thing that I would do, for me is looking at my daughter. She's an amazing young lady, and I love her to death. And, that puts a smile on my face, all the time. And no matter if she's being, difficult that day or that weekend or whatever, she's my daughter.
They seem to know everything, don't they?
They do. And, so that's something for me that's kind of a big deal. And another thing for me, my girlfriend, Sarah, and I will go to the movies, and I love going to the movies. And I've told people, I said, man, I wish I could be like a movie critic and actually make money for it, because I mean, I will go to the movies by myself, or Sarah and I will go, Ashley and I will go. And I love going to the movies, and I love sitting there watching movies, and they could be dumb movies, they could be action-packed movies, funny movies.
Yeah.
I don't get into the chick flick stuff too much, but so I probably wouldn't be able to review many of those movies. But,
what's the last movie you went to?
What did we go see? Ashley and I, she wanted to go see this movie, A Simple Favor, which I think is a chick flick.
Okay.
But I went with her and I saw that. And then, what was the net? I saw a movie the next day. Now I can't even remember what the heck it was.
I went to the movies a couple weeks ago. I haven't been in years. The movie theaters have changed, my friend.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, you pick your seats and everything. I was interviewing Cody Coughlin a lot because he was in the Truck Series, and he was in a movie. So I wanted to go see the movie that he was in, and so I could talk about it on stage next time I interviewed him. And I couldn't believe how everything has changed when it comes to movies, and the seats now recline all the way back.
Oh, yeah. The problem with it is you almost fall asleep in
Yes,
them.
it's so-
If it's
it's
not
so
a good
awesome.
movie, you might fall asleep.
Listen, we literally only have like 10 minutes before another hour is over. And
Man.
I know this is crazy. Fans constantly give the drivers, crew chiefs, people on the team things. What's something that a fan has given to you that has been memorable to you? And what I'm talking about is, I know I'm just an MC. I just go out there and I interview the drivers, but I get close to certain fans and stuff like that, and they give me things. I mean, I've gotten tokens of Border Patrol guys that it's been blessed by the Pope, and they carry it with them, and for years, and they would give it to me. I've had rocks that, their sons that, just all kinds of cool things that I still carry in my backpack to this day, because they took time to give it to me, and they were proud of something that they gave to me. Has a fan ever gave you something that has been so memorable to you that you still have it today?
Well, there's a lot of things that fans have given me. Pictures are pretty common.
Yeah.
Pictures of, whether it's myself and my daughter, myself and my brother, myself and Scott or Connie or whoever,
Mm-hmm.
so I've got, over the years, gotten a lot of really cool pictures. One of the things that I got from a fan in Chicago, and I would get these things religiously every time we raced in Chicago, he had the 4-leaf clovers.
Were they real?
Yeah.
Really?
And he would find these things, and he would come out and get, and we kind of had a thing going, because every time he would show up, we always tended to do pretty good at Chicago. So I always felt, we both felt like we needed these 4-leaf clovers in order to be successful at the Chicago. But, I would say that was probably the coolest thing, where somebody would always come around and make sure that we had them.
You're in the car business, my friend. Give me your 5 top vehicles of all time, racing and non-racing.
Well,
I that I do a lot with Chevy, so you better make sure that Chevy is in there somewhere. I'm just going to say.
I could tell you right now, how could you not love a Chevy pickup
Oh
truck?
my God, I know. I got a brand new one sitting in the driveway.
I mean, those things are very cool. So, a Chevy pickup is something that's awesome to me. I've as far as like any car, there's, some of the old drag racing cars, like my dad's, the Pleasure Seekers top fuel car, or the Nirvana top fuel car that he had, was partners with a couple guys back in the 70s, is always something that stood out to me. The 2 cars, and I kind of compare them like in the same breath, would be like the Blue Max funny car and the Army funny car. The Blue Max funny car driven by Raymond Beadle, and the Army funny car driven by Don the Snake Perdome. Those were like 2 of the coolest cars ever, and those were cars that were before I got involved full-time racing. Those were like, man, these guys are my heroes. Like Raymond Beadle was like like a really cool guy, you know, come to my dad's shop all the time. You know, I would say that, you know, I like the old muscle cars. I always had a fascination for like the old, you know, Camaros and Corvettes and stuff, you know, back then, and Ford Mustangs and stuff. So I'm kind of like, I can't say that I have like a particular car that I have to have. You know, I used to think that like having a Ferrari or Lamborghini would be really cool, but there ain't no way my big ass is going to fit in one of those and get out of one of those.
What about a Porsche 911 with a whale tail? And I say that because while you're talking, Rick Fisher had one of his red Porsches at your race shop one time. So one day I walk in and I see it there and I'm like, flipping Jimmo bought a new car.
Oh no. Yeah. You know, the Porsche 911s they're really pretty cool.
Yeah. Especially the older ones.
Yeah.
Like, you know.
Like I remember I had a picture of a 935 DP that was just like the coolest thing ever. And I thought, oh, that'd be so awesome to have one of those cars, you know, someday. And that was like stuff when I was a kid that it was a dream list, I guess.
You've been doing this for 30 some years and you have been around so many celebrities. Does one or two stick out? And the reason why I say that is because you brought something up that 30 some years ago, you were just happy to be polishing the car. And Mr. Fisher, that's one thing that he always did. I mean, this guy didn't have to, like, he loved to be a part of the team.
Right.
But I've also seen celebrities in your pits and they just wanted to do something. So you let them like take an oil pan and clean it out. I've seen Jesse James back there several times. You know what I mean? Who has been some people that they were in your pits, they wanted to meet you, and you turned around and you're like, wow, like I looked up to this person. Like I listened to his music or her music, or, I mean, does any of them stand out?
I tell you what, I've been fortunate to meet a lot of cool people from, you know, Kid Rock, you know, Jesse James. Mm-hmm. Jesse James is you know, a friend of mine and you know, been a good influence for me in many ways. Chip Foose, you know, he's another guy that's just a really great guy. John Paul DeJoria, Alexis DeJoria's father, and Alexis really should be considered in that celebrity thing as well. But John Paul, her dad, truly amazing guy. Mm-hmm. You know, just a very inspirational guy and positive guy. It's like, man, that guy could be ripping your ass and you wouldn't even know it. I don't think. You know, he's just that so kind of guy. Yeah. And you know, I've been fortunate to meet a lot of, you know, whether it's professional football players, baseball players and stuff. But I'll tell you a guy that I met that I thought was cooler than hell was the nature boy, Ric Flair.
Oh, yeah. Woo!
Oh, yeah. You know, I met him at an event out in Las Vegas. A marketing company came out there and presented something to us. And then they had heard that I liked watching wrestling and stuff. And the next thing you know, Ric Flair comes walking through the door. But he was a really cool guy,
yeah,
and somebody that was truly a down to earth guy, and I just had a lot of fun with him.
What's one thing in life, and we're gonna wrap it up right here, that you still want to accomplish? You've accomplished so much in your young life, but what's one thing that's still that carrot is dangling in front of you that you still want to go after, and you want to reach that goal. You want to get to that next level. What is it for you, Jim?
Well, I still believe I have some unfinished business in NHRA drag racing. And I want to go out and, you know, be able to win races and win a championship. But, you know, I've been thinking about that a lot lately, you know, too. And I want to own my own business. And, you know, I've been thinking about this for the last couple of years and I've spent, you know, this time that I've had off here recently, kind of accelerating that process.
What kind of business? Are you ready to tell us?
Well, I'm looking at a couple different things. You know, one of the main it's automotive related, and you know, it's something that I'm definitely considering. Before I came over here and saw you, I seen you. Met with these people, and it's just, it's something that's very exciting for me.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, you know, taking that leap of faith to go do this, because it's scary, you
Absolutely.
know, and, you know, to open your own business and succeed at it, because I'm fortunate. I've created a nice little nest egg for myself to where, you know, I don't have to go out and work tomorrow.
Right.
But, you know, I haven't worked now in the last month, and I'm bored to death. And, you know, and I've had people call me up, hey, why don't you come out and help in a race car? I'm leaving Monday to go to Australia, help friend Bruce Reed out with his race car. But you know, I that intrigue of owning your own business is something that it keeps getting greater and greater and greater for me. And that's something that I really would like to do. And it you know, it may take me away from drag racing, you know, but that's okay.
Your last thought, and I want to ask you this: what's a motto that you live by every single day that you can share with everybody?
Well, for me, it's that happiness is so powerful, and that for me, I want to be happy every day I wake up. I want to be happy with the things that I do, the things that I'm going to do, or the things that I have done. And, you know, and that simple happiness is powerful for me to move on with my life and hopefully have that positive effect on people, you know. And I think that's, you know, goes back to why I want to own my own business, is maybe I can do that, you know, to be able to help people, you know, with, you know, in life, whether it's giving them a job or, you know, doing anything. That's what I want to do.
How can people find your book?
Well,
and again, it's Top Fuel for Life.
It's on Amazon.com. I believe it's on, you know, it's been on Walmart.com and BarnesandNoble.com, but that's where you can get it.
If people want to book you for a speaking gig or want to reach out to you, do you have a way that people can get a hold of you these days without giving out your phone number?
Yeah, no, I'm on Facebook. You know, you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, anything like that. You know, I haven't done a lot with the speaking stuff this past year, because there's so many other things that have been going on. But that's something that now that I've, you know, stepped away from, you know, my racing role, you know, I'm looking back at that again to see about trying to get back into that, you know, full time again.
Can you believe it's been another hour? Like I felt like I just sat down with you, and now we're at, you know, our episode number 2. I mean, this is just crazy. I can't thank you enough for coming by, hanging out with me for not only one episode, but 2. This is Johnny D, the Motivational Cowboy, telling all of you, be safe, have fun, and have yourselves an outstanding day. You have just listened to the 2nd episode of Life at 300 miles per hour with my friend Jimmo. And don't forget, you can find all the episodes of Outstanding Life podcast at motivationalcowboy.com, soundcloud.com/Outstanding Life podcast. And don't forget, you can also download it at iTunes podcast. Again, this is Johnny D, the Motivational Cowboy, telling all of you, be safe, have fun, and have yourselves an outstanding day. Thanks, Jimmo.
Thank you, Johnny D.
Outstanding Life is a Soul Bridge Studio production.